We start off episode 28 with a look at the Infinitentiary, a futuristic prison where Blendin was held, who is currently on the run through the streets of the city below. And while he's running, we can see a guy on the side who already paints a pretty good picture of how well off people are in this future. When Blendin gets caught, he decides to invoke Globnar in front of a very suddenly appearing crowd, and we will get to what Globnar actually is later on. But for now, we'll switch back to the twins doing some chill snack getting with the help of Zeus and his knowledge of the vending machine, which is actually a detail that will come up way later in the episode again. When Zeus leaves to help Stan scratch himself, he forgets his wallet and naturally the twins look through it. Besides finding the emergency salami, they also find out that he didn't tell them that it's his birthday, July 13th. Now they are preparing a surprise party for him, which pretty much went as south as can be. Not gonna lie, most likely because of Toby. The only info that the twins really get is that Zeus apparently hates his birthday and that Stan is not allowed on airplanes anymore after trying to have the day removed from calendars. Because we're still in a Disney show, they used root beer on the postcard to hint at alcohol. In the scene where Zeus is sitting on the porch, it's clear that he's sitting in front of the entrance of the gift shop. Here we have two more obvious continuity errors. One of them is a missing coin stamping machine that's normally on the right of the pit cola. And the other one that I find a bit harder to explain, besides just something that's missing from the scene, is that the sign to the right of Zeus now has a question mark on it, even though in earlier episodes it has an exclamation mark. I don't know why they changed that. Maybe it just got lost between the seasons. Judging from this frame right here, Stan must have got some real insane core strength. To cheer Zeus back up, they decide to go to laser tag based on the card they also found in his wallet. And I gotta be honest, I'm pretty impressed that they got the position of everyone in the group right, from when they are in front of the building to when they are entering the building. In this overview shot of the entrance, there's not much interesting stuff going on, only that the kid on the right was also in the Halloween episode. Also, the garbage on the ground has a really weird scale compared to everything else. The kids are running across the garbage, but it looks like the garbage is at least their size. And I thought it might be a weird part of the floor imagery with the planets and stuff, but it isn't. It is supposed to be garbage that's lying around, but it looks like this garbage is just gigantic, or the kids are very tiny, so there was some weird perspective stuff going on here. And after a bit of convincing, saying that they definitely won't leave his side, 100% not foreshadowing, they start blasting. And to be honest, I think Mabel, Wendy and Candy are kind of cheating by covering the shoulder detectors with their hair. Of course, the twins have to leave Zeus' side involuntarily, though I also don't know why they didn't just stop earlier with this much of a run-up. They could have definitely seen that cage just appear out of thin air. And really, how Zeus didn't see them in that cage is also completely beyond me. Yeah, true, he did look down when he entered the arena, but shortly after looked up, so I'm fairly sure he should have seen them. They truly did the inmates dirty in this little sob story from Blendin. Look at them, they look like Play-Doh. After Blendin whining for a bit, we also finally get the explanation to what Globnar is. It's basically gladiator fights in a coliseum, but the people setting it up watch too much Tron. Before moving on, we're treated to another way too brutal scene for the show. I see you copy-pasting the crowd. Before anything really happens, we're treated to a short cutaway back to Zeus, who's basically just getting bullied. Now back to the twins, who, after breaking Lolf's heart by posing as his great ×7 grandma while trying to escape, end up in the laser tag location while it was still a mattress store. And yes, I've checked, it's still the same guy behind the counter. By the looks of him, he just loved his job way too much to leave. Oh, I guess he could also be the owner. And of course, I have to nitpick about minor animation errors that don't really have an impact at all. In this case, it's a time tape measurer, which Dipper held in his left hand before traveling, but then it's just gone after they traveled. But a few seconds later, it reappears, this time broken because it fell down during their travels, which also doesn't line up with when they used it before, because in that episode, it stayed in their hands when they traveled. Okay, moving on to a bit of a rapid fire me talking about the obvious things. So we've got Sheriff Blubbs, the bouncer guy who's getting his first tattoo, Tyler with a boombox, Baby Gideon on the poster, then we've got Robbie and Thompson, and we're closing it off with Toby, who apparently didn't age in the slightest, which can be viewed as a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. Oh yeah, they also meet Tambry and Wendy as kids. The former is already pretty phone focused, at least judging from her shirt, which is a nice detail. We get a short look at Stan when they arrive at the mystery shack, and he doesn't seem any younger, even though the twins jump back 10 years into the past. And some things seem to never change, because he's already presenting the rock that looks like a face, even though he's talking knowing about the wax museum that still seems to be open at that point. There have also been some slight changes to the gift shop decor. In the present, the Bigfoot foot tip jar doesn't stand on the counter, and the diving helmet is moved a bit further to the left. The Bigfoot footprint that's now standing in the corner also got replaced by the stone wheel later on. The scene where Mabel shows Charles Seuss how to open the vending machine with the trick that he showed them in the present kind of opens up a paradox or loop. Because the way things played out now means that Seuss taught them the trick that he learned from them in the first place, but they couldn't have known the trick if he didn't teach it to them. And I know that this is a pretty obvious one, but I thought I'd still shortly touch on it nonetheless. But we'll stick to this shot for a second, because in the background, Wax Sherlock is clearly visible, which hints at two things. Either that Stan just didn't want him to stand in the newly opened wax museum, because he thought that he would look better in the gift shop, which is the lame version, or that this is supposed to hint at the fact that they can already move, and that he moved there by himself, though then it might seem a bit weird that Stan kept him there. Another bit more obvious detail is that he already seems to be liking the Mystery Shack t-shirt that he's going to be wearing when he starts working there. Of course, the twins have to follow Seuss to Abuelita's house to find out why he actually hates his birthday, and it does look like her house, though there are a few things that are definitely off. It's missing the bigger front lawn that we saw in the finale episodes of season 1, which also includes the walkway, though compared to the house from the first season, it gained a pretty big new side garden and a new side entrance. House architecture aside, we now find out why Seuss hates his birthday, and that's because his dad is a deadbeat who hasn't been with him for the last 8 years. Which makes the fact that he hates his own birthday seem fairly reasonable, considering that his dad always said that he was gonna be there, but never was. Considering that this is his 8th birthday, what a tongue twister, and that the twins mentioned that they traveled back 10 years, I used my insane math skills to deduct that he's 18. The keyboard he gets is of course a reference to his DJ gig, and he didn't take it into his room, though in the next shot it's unwrapped in the background. And even though this is an inconsistency, there's a bit of a redemption in the shot before when he walks into his room, because you can see the red balloon that is tied to the chair of honor through the door. Even though I gotta say, this kind of reminds me of It. The scene where Dipper recaps what we just saw is kind of supposed to be a sad realization, and I don't really like the way they broke that up by having Robbie run in there and spray them with water. It just feels kind of unnecessary to give a sad scene like this a comedic break instead of leaving it as is. It just makes the whole thing feel less sad and less impactful because it breaks that mood instantly. It's even more unnecessary because after the cutaway, they re-establish that sad mood again. So the whole thing about Robbie remembering that somebody shot a laser at him. The most likely explanation that I could come up with was that he was already memory rayed back then, otherwise he probably would have remembered, which doesn't seem too far off because Stan is already in the Mystery Shack, which means that the Society of the Blind Eye is already established. And their whole thing is that they memory ray people who saw things they probably shouldn't have, so this doesn't seem too unlikely. Of course, I'm always interested in hearing your theories about that kind of stuff. Now the twins plan to win Globnar against Blendin to give the time wish they would receive to Seuss. And in the cutaway where they show Seuss, the dinosaur cookies turned into regular cookies, which is pretty lame, because dinosaur cookies rule. That probably won't have any consequences. Don't worry, they got a few more clones of that guy. There's definitely 100% an objectively right choice here. I have no clue why I just noticed this right now, but the reticles that Lolf and Dungrin have on their little visors are absolutely useless. Also, Dungrin has a weirdly thick wrinkle in this shot. Kinda looks like half of a mustache. So by the looks of it, Blendin just picked up that spear to flex because right afterwards he doesn't have it anymore. Of course, everything culminates in them playing laser tag as the final challenge, and they beat Blendin because the previous challenges basically just didn't count, and whoever touches the orb at the end wins. All of this boils down to the other rules and the scoreboard meaning nothing. Back at the laser tag arena, the receptionist apparently just dipped. We can see an arcade machine in the background for a bit that has the options Rage Quit and the latter one probably being a reference to fuck. Now at the end we get this very wholesome scene of Seuss coming to terms with his dad not being there, saying that he can take a hike and also that the twins are now his real family. Next to his real family, of course. He uses Time Wish on the twins so they can be clean and uninjured again, and for a slice of infinite pizza, which to me seems like it's 2 wishes. So can you just put "and" between everything you want and then it counts as one wish? Because this seems to imply that it does. So throughout this whole interaction, Blendin just stood behind them, and I sometimes get this thought of how the characters feel when they just stand behind other characters who just have an interaction. Because most of the time they're just standing there saying nothing, and then that's basically it. It seems a bit awkward to be that kind of character. Also, they just ditch Blendin to go play laser tag. There's no real conclusion to what he's going to do now. And yeah, I know, the screwdriver. We get to that now in the while the credits are rolling scene. Who could have thought? It's important. It's basically the reason why Seuss became a handyman in the mystery shack in the first place, because it's a mystery shack screwdriver, and then he goes there and gets employed as a kid. Seems like child labor, but who am I to say? So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mysteries of Gravity Falls. And yeah, I know that there are probably a few paradoxes throughout the episode, like the one I mentioned with Seuss learning the trick about the vending machine, but I decided to not go into detail about them. I don't think that's reasonable to do here, so I just left that out entirely. Though you probably could consider this one a filler episode, I think they did a pretty good job with giving us some more of Seuss's background story while also keeping it interesting. Well, that's it for this one. I hope to see you in the next episode of Mysteries of Gravity Falls, and until then, see ya!